Okay, welcome everybody to this webinar, this high-level political forum side event, where it's an official side event of the HLPF, which is now underway in New York. Accelerating Ocean Climate Action with Youth-Centered Partnerships. Thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Karen Hallows. I'm International Coordinator at Peaceboat, a Japan-based NGO. And we're delighted to be organizing this event with our partners, the Africa Europe Foundation, co-organizing this event together. And we have a fantastic lineup of speakers here joining us today for this discussion on ocean and climate action, the SDGs that are under review. I'll just introduce our speakers. Before I do, I should mention that this webinar is being recorded. And it will be uploaded later to the Peaceboat and AEF websites. So if any colleagues or friends were unable to catch the event today, then please share that with them. Okay, so we're joining us speaking today. We have Ambassador Maritza Chan Valverde, who is the permanent representative of Costa Rica to the United Nations. And we have Ambassador Nancy Karigithu, who is the co-chair of the Africa-Europe Strategy Group on Ocean Governance. She's also Kenya's ambassador and special envoy for maritime and the blue economy, and former principal secretary for shipping and maritime affairs for the government of Kenya. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, Ambassador Nancy.
Thank you.
Joining us from Seychelles, we have Victoria Alice, who's project manager at GOS-GEF UNDP, the Blue Economy Project, a joint venture with Seychelles government. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Victoria. Joining from Israel, but originally from France, we have Salomé Zajber, who is representing EcoPeace, also a Peaceboat Youth Refugee Scholar and a younger representative. So happy to have you here, Salomé, and good to see you again. We have also joining us from Mauritius, Raj Mabahia, who from the Indian Ocean Commission, where he is the officer in charge and also the youth coordinator and working a lot on youth involvement in the IOC. It's a pleasure to see you, Raj. And joining us from Madagascar, we have Kumba Cisse, who is the project manager of the French Madagascan NGO, Je m'engage pour l'Afrique. Hello, Kumba, it's a pleasure to have you. So I think that's everybody that's been joining us in part of the panel discussion. And we're going to be having as well some opening remarks from Yoshioka Tatsuya. Yoshioka is the founder and founder and director of Peaceboat. And he'll be starting today's session with a few opening remarks on today's topic before we go into the discussion. So that's introductions for everybody. And I won't hold the time anymore because I want to leave a lot of time to hear from everybody else. But again, thank you very much to everyone for joining us. And Yoshioka-san, if I could hand the floor to you to start us on this concept of accelerating ocean climate action with youth-centered partnerships. Thank you very much, Yoshioka.
Hello, good morning, and good afternoon, good evening. So distinguished guests and also ambassadors and also all participants, I'm so happy we can start this the session in high-level political forum, and I think that is the situation in the world is not so great now, but that's why this forum has a very important meaning. I really believe so. So especially that I would like to introduce our organization, but this is my organization, Peaceboat, is a little bit related with how to encourage the young people. Because we started this organization 41 years ago, and I was 23 years old. So, and I know how much that the young people is the need, the encouragement and empowerment, and also the support each other. And that is my deep experience in the peace mode. Very fortunately, we received the Nobel Peace Prize as a part of the ICANN international campaign for abolition of the nuclear weapon. And until now, every year, 3 times world cruise with 1,500 people organizing the global voyage. And we are sailing ocean. So that's why we are really feeling this planet is what's going on. I was so shocked. Few days ago, our ship they visited Alaska, and but the glacier in Alaska is much withdraw, go back. I think that's a very visible the evidence what's going on now. So, and our ship, Peace Boat, is only, let's say, only one, the cruise ship. They're carrying the SDGs logo in the hull of the ship. Ambassador Nancy is a very expert of the shipping issue. So maybe later on, we can have the innovative idea and so on, how to make that the shipping society contribute to also resolve of the climate crisis, I think. So this is actual the global voyage. So we are visiting also the Madagascar and Seychelles, Mauritius, and really actually all over the world, including large ocean states we are visiting. So, and now we are trying to build most ecological the passenger ship in the world. This is also one of the challenge to create that game changer in the world. We need a kind of the symbolic empowerment to the people, and especially for the young people. This is our Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program. And we have started 4 years ago, and 3 times we organized, and nearly 24 the members the joining. Salome is also that's you joining one of this one, right?
On the Youth for the SDGs program, a bit later.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That is another program. But anyway, that's that the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program is visiting all over the world as a testimony of the young people who living in a large ocean states. So I think it is very powerful, the testimony, because the people understand that there's a crisis in the islands, but they didn't understand that actual feeling and the fact. So these youth, they disseminate about their real experience all over the world, and including the high-level political forum, then 2018 in New York. So, and this is Salome joining the one of that program that use for the SDGs program, I think. So, and approximately more than 60 young people joining in these 3 years. And I think that is something like young people, they start to find something new through the real experience. This is totally different study in a university or, inside of the venue or the conference, or not like that. That the actual, the field or ocean or the mountain, whatever, that is a real experience, is a very powerful for the young people. So maybe that Salome can mention about that later on. And this one is the strategic dialogue on African Euro-Ocean economy. This is organized with the African Europe Foundation, our partner now in this forum, so on board on our ship. It was a really meaningful discussion through my experience, and also including the quite young entrepreneur. Unfortunately, that is in the world, war is ongoing, and Ukraine and Gaza. But I really would like to emphasize that the war itself is so destructive, and also the producing huge amount of the green gas, and contribute too much for the climate crisis. And also military expenditure. I really admire the Costa Rica, and because Costa Rica has a peace constitution, Japan also similar the constitution, but really the making the efforts to build that human security country, not militaristic country. So I think that is a very important element, is how to prepare the resource to resolve of the climate crisis and also ocean crisis. And I think this kind of the military expenditure, if we can shift to the climate issue and the ocean issue, I think we can make a big difference. I really believe so. So that point is very meaningful to consider about that the SDGs holistically, because in the SDGs 16 is, as you know, that's the peace issue. So I think today I'm very, very honored and happy to have such kind of the distinguished the guest, and at the same time the expert from each field, so, and active people. So thank you very much again, and I hope that we can create difference for this world, for this planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Yoshioka-san, for those opening remarks, focusing on the importance of youth, the blue economy, the ocean, and connecting as well SDG 16 with SDG 13 and 14, looking at how the military and also is contributing to the climate and ocean crises. So we've got some talking points there to think about. Now we've put this event together as part of the high-level political forum, which is ongoing in New York at the moment. We've got certain SDGs under review. SDG 16 and SDG 13 and SDG 17 are some of the SDGs that are up. So we've got partnerships, we've got the climate, we've got peace. So these are some of the issues that we're going to be focusing on today, and they are all connected. And I think we can have that sort of discussion and bring up some of those issues. But I think I'd like to start by opening up the floor. We were supposed to have Ambassador Chan joining us today, who is the permanent representative of Costa Rica to the United Nations, as I previously mentioned. Unfortunately, for unforeseen circumstances, she can't join us in person. I know that Costa Rica as well is obviously one of the countries that's submitting their VNRs. So I imagine it's extremely busy for Costa Rica at this time. So she has sent us a recorded message, and so we'll just play that with some of her remarks that she would have brought up into the discussion before we open the floor, and I'll start asking some questions. So first of all, we'll hear from Ambassador Chan.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we stand at a critical juncture with climate conferences and policy cycles, including COP29 and UNOC 3 on the horizon. Now more than ever, North-South, South-South, and triangular cooperation is essential to strengthen our collaboration and coordination in climate and ocean action. Our mission is clear: to address the triple planetary crisis. As co-host of the Third United Nations Ocean Conference, Costa Rica is committed toward achieving an ambitious political declaration, a record number of voluntary commitments, and decisive actions for ocean health and marine ecosystem preservation. At the high-level event that was held in Costa Rica in June, we promoted the Peace for the Ocean Declaration, which called for transformative ocean actions and supports nature-positive economies based on the best available science and traditional knowledge. We invite all member states and stakeholders to join the Peace for the Ocean Declaration to affirm your commitment, our commitment to the ocean as an essential source for the survival of people and nature. A healthy ocean is crucial for humans and ecosystems to thrive. This brings me to a next point. We find ourselves in a paradox. While estimates suggest that $150 billion to $440 billion per year is needed to achieve SDG 14 by 2030, between 2015 and 2019, only around $10 billion was investing, making SDG 14 one of the most underfunded goals. In stark contrast, global military expenditure reached $2.4 trillion in 2023. Imagine if instead of escalating military spending, we had allocated just a tiny portion of those resources to SDG 14. Our goals would be within reach. We need new leadership, strong leadership, to prioritize investments in protecting life underwater over warfare. We need youth to drive this shift. This building process with meaningful youth participation can redirect our resources from armament to human security approaches. Together, through robust cooperation and decisive action, we can ensure a sustainable future for our oceans and our planet. We can rise together to the challenge and make the difference. I wish a very productive meeting today, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Chan. That's fine words. And of course, Costa Rica is co-chairing the Ocean Conference, the third Ocean Conference. It seems that time has passed very quickly since the first Ocean Conference that was held in New York. Then we had in Lisbon, co-hosted by Portugal and, of course, Kenya. And now we have the third Ocean Conference co-hosted by Costa Rica and France next year. It's going to come so quickly in June next year. So we're looking already ahead to Costa Rica. And thank you very much to Costa Rica Permanent Mission and also the Embassy of Costa Rica in Japan that has supported this forum and this event and also of Peace Boats activities. So thank you very much to them. I'm going to jump in. I think people will be having Ambassador Chan's remarks in their head, but I want to hear from everybody that's joined us today. I'll start by asking if I can, jumping in straight about the accelerating ocean climate action. Now, what specific strategies, can we get down to some specifics here? What specific strategies can we do? What can we do to accelerate ocean and climate action, and in particular as well for marginalized communities or vulnerable ecosystems, because it is affecting people disproportionately, communities disproportionately. I open this to the floor, but if I could also start by asking Ambassador Nancy if you have some comments on this question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Karen. And I want to acknowledge and really appreciate the previous speakers on the Peace Boat and now from the Ambassador of Costa Rica. Very inspiring thoughts and initiatives on the topic at hand. Now, I will speak from the perspective of my role as co-chair of the strategy group of the Europe Foundation, the strategy group on ocean governance, and whose focus is to engender cooperation between Africa and Europe, cooperation that will target and address common challenges and create sustainable growth. And on this one, we've come up with partnership initiatives, because this is the role of every one of us, in order to enhance ocean governance, promote sustainability, and ensure equitable benefits from ocean resources. So the initiatives we have aim to foster a more integrated and cooperative approach to ocean management, leveraging, of course, on the strength of both the African and European partners in order, like I said, to attain sustainable development goals. And most important in this regard, protect marine ecosystems for future generations. And in this regard, we've come up with a strategy roadmap, ocean strategy roadmap, that we aim to launch in the near future, and which embodies strategies that generally include a range of initiatives. The first one I may mention here is the climate action and resilience. And in this, one of the first prongs that we see is to raise awareness. So coming up with and conducting educational campaigns in order to raise awareness about the importance of the oceans, both at policy level and also to uplift the oceans and also commit the necessary resources. So giving it prominence from a policy, public level, and also the funding and to raise the finances that are needed. A deliberate, intentional attempt at this one. Then climate action and resilience, coordinating together efforts to mitigate the impacts of climate change on marine environments and coastal areas through adaptive management and nature-based solutions. We find that 60% of our populations live near the oceans, and they are not entirely the most empowered communities. So having this intentional and deliberate approach to empower them and to, really plug into their needs and wants is very, very important. And of course, in that regard, sharing best practices in disaster risk management and also enhancing the resilience of those coastal communities to climate-related hazards. Most important is to engage them, create local partnerships with them, work with them to ensure that they fully participate and benefit from our ocean conservation and sustainable economic activities, which will call for capacity building, training on more than one front. If I may say, for example, coastal communities, we know in some regards, nature doesn't have value when it's living. For example, if I may quote, a tree has no value when it's living and standing, in the historical sense. But when it's dead, then it's wood and it's money for sustenance and subsistence. So how do we create a new asset class that translates the intrinsic value of such things, so that the local communities learn that they can get as much value in biodiversity when it's alive. For example, creating carbon credits or carbon value from that, biodiversity value from that. So those are some of the things that I want to propose before. Let me give it to somebody else before I can come back on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nancy, for covering all our points there. I think an excellent start to the discussion. Thank you very much. You touched on partnerships. You touched on the importance of bringing a coastal communities fully participating. I mean, so many points you mentioned there, I think that our speakers will want to comment on. So I will not speak for much longer. If I could just ask Kumba if you have any thing that you would like to add, and then I'll open the floor to anybody else.
Thank you, Ambassador Kawigitu, for these really insightful remarks. I would just like to thank all the speakers and thank you for this opportunity. And I'll just like to add a few tweaks to our presentation. Je m'engage pour l'Afrique is a public policy incubator. We're based in France, but we have worked deeply with partners that we have in Madagascar. So I would just like to tweak that. And I would just like to jump back on the really important point that you've highlighted, which is locally based solutions and to really involve the community that is directly impacted by ocean challenges and everything that is related to seashores. So for instance, here at Je m'engage pour l'Afrique, we have collaborated with Corail, which is an initiative from Madagascar that is created by Jemila Donti, whose objective is restoring mangroves, seagrasses, and corals across Africa. It is even more important that it's based there in Madagascar because Madagascar holds 20% of the Western Indian Ocean's coral surface. So we've made actions with this organization by including the local population in Nosy to clean up beaches, but also to really educate and just know to let the population know that they have ways to locally use resources, but also to just develop their own activities. I think it's really important to know that these people can still hold their activity that they usually use to just sustain themselves, but also be respectful of the environment. So to treat corals more gently, to use sustainably the resources, the use of water and waste, how to dispose of that waste and not to let it go into the water, how to promote ecotourism beyond just usual discourses that we hear. And it really offered innovative ways for young people, especially, to get involved in those projects that are just not strangers who come into their city and teach them how to behave around their own environment, but really for them to be put at the center. So I think in order to really advance, it's really important to have community conservation programs and locally based solutions. You've also mentioned the importance, and other speakers have highlighted the importance of financing these projects, because we know that a lot of people are already involved, have a lot of initiatives, but they don't have access to financing. So for them to really know what are the opportunities for them to have small grants, to really replicate those type of actions, to really involve them in every step of the way from project conception, for them to know that it is aligned with their needs and their realities. And also, more importantly, for them to know that in order to highlight climate action and ocean climate action, they need to be actors of change and not just guests or spectators that are invited every now and again, which is why this initiative that we've made with Corail really is an important example of everything that the different speakers have highlighted. I also agree with the importance of awareness and education, because although the effects can be visible, there's some long-term effects that some people are not aware of, especially on health, on the next generation. So for them to really have access to educational and awareness training, campaigns that can include ocean climate issues and the importance of the conservation of all our ecosystems in education, for this to start at a really young age, and not just to know that the youth doesn't just involve young adults or people who are graduating, but also really young kids, for them to know that this starts with them so that it can grow with the next generation. And all in all, I think that reinforcing marine-based and nature-based solutions really play a significant role in safeguarding livelihoods and coastal populations, because they address multiple challenges that go from, they can just combine climate action for change and biodiversity conservation, and the importance and the challenges of these populations.
Thank you very much. It's great to have the concrete examples that you were giving there of some of the issues that we're talking about. Before I go on to the next question, does anybody have any responses to anything they've heard so far? I'm sure that, I mean, these are all interlinked, so I mean, we can respond whenever you like. Okay, I'll move. I'll move on to our next question, if I may. It was mentioned before by Ambassador Chan that we have some important events coming up, some international events. We have the climate conferences, COP29 coming up. We have the third World Ocean Conference. In the contexts of this, how can North and South cooperation, we've already mentioned as well, Africa-Europe cooperation, but generally North-South cooperation, how can that strengthen collaboration and coordination in ocean and climate development? If I could open the floor.
We have to think very carefully on this, and I think it's a very important question for involving the international community and me in this very important forum. And I think it's very timely that we look at events such as COP29 and C3. I think that it is very important for us to look at from a different angle. First of all, on certain areas or certain principles first. I think we'll have to look at what are the strengths of the North and the strengths of the South. We'll have to try to strategize, and there should be some champions to try to dialogue with the North and the South on the basis of the strengths. And secondly, we have to try in the negotiation and dialogue to recognize that we are dealing with global challenges and global issues, which require global responses. And I think that there should be some actors and maybe some, like specific UN agencies and try to get a sort of an alliance of these institutions to be working together with us. I have 4 points to make on this one. First, we have to acknowledge that to address the on and development actions, we have to recognize first that the North has the technology, has the resources, has the skills and the know-how, which the South do not have. I always take the example of fish. In my region, most of the tuna is caught by distant water fishing vessels, not the region. I initiated a study in 2004, 2005, which showed that the proceeds from the fisheries in the region benefits only maximum of 7 to 8% to the region. So if in the context of fisheries, fishing which exists since humanity exists, we have not developed the technology, we don't have the resources to exploit the maximum from, then how do we expect to really benefit in a sustainable manner from our blue economy development, etc. So first, we have to acknowledge the fact that the technology, the resources, innovations, skills, and know-how are in the North. In other words, we have to promote the transfer of technology, the transfer of resources, transfer of innovation, and facilitate that. Just to give you an example, on monitoring of the activities at sea, I have done lots of work on this. If you're interested, you can see the work that we've done on the regional architecture for maritime security to try to put some order in what people are doing in the oceans. You'll find that these technologies are not available, and we are like hands and feet tied to major producers of those technologies. So that's one. So we have to work on how can we promote that. My second point is that the South have less limited resources. Like you take a country like Seychelles, very small administration. So developing blue economy, it requires that we pool the resources together and we do not have lots of projects. What happens is that every single development partner comes with its own project, and at the end of the day, the ultimate effect is a dilution of the several projects. But at the same time, development partners, they claim that they have spent so many millions, etc., without lots of impact. So that's my second point. In the way, can we try to promote so that development partners, they don't come up with competing projects with the same objective. My third point is that we need to identify champions. UNDP, UNCTAD, I don't know. But we have to look at how can we review the economic model. All the problems that we have right now, including climate change, is because the whole world, all the countries in the whole world, are all pushing for an economic development in a manner which is not sustainable. So the consumptions and the production, the way it is done, we have to review it. Now, we have to identify, the UN should identify one key institution to lead us on this. And my last point on this is how we can focus. And I think this is also very important and key. We know very much that in COP21, COP22, until COP29, but we'll have COP50, COP60, you can see the divide between the North and the South. Now, is there a mechanism or a dialogue to address this divide? How to overcome this divide? Is there one? Do we have one? If we have, I'm fine, but I don't think we have. So we have to, I don't know how, but this should be on the table. Let's think how to overcome this divide between the North and the South, to try to get everyone to agree that this is a global problem. We'll have to work together. Let's put all our efforts together and then see to it that we are addressing these challenges. On one hand, the climate deregulations, I will call it not climate change, but where we are now is climate deregulation, and also the ocean development in a manner which is sustainable for, if not, there are many challenges. I would like just to mention one. For example, we found gas off the coast of Mozambique, and you saw what happened. You know, Mozambique, it's not Mozambican company which started exploiting that gas. It was an international European company. And then, you know, it was attacked. And all this has those roots. So I just wanted to say that it is very important for us to look at in a very strategic manner and try to read that. And let me stop here because I know I've taken more than the time that was allowed for me. Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I mean, covering so many points from our speakers and highlighting the inequalities that were mentioned before, and also the need for partnerships on an equal footing. You know, this kind of evaluating the relationships, what is the importance of the partnerships, and how do we construct these partnerships and transfer of this technology. Nancy, you have your hand raised if you want to just respond to Raj before I go to Salome.
Yes, and not to respond, just to add something on the positive side, and to say that there is an inequality, but we all need one another. This is one problem that is not going to be solved by one half of the world because it affects us all equally. And I want to mention here the advantages, for example, that Africa has that would really provide solutions if tapped into in a positive manner, south, south, north, south, and whatever. Africa is abundantly endowed with natural resources that would really build into the solutions that we have. But like Raj said, we don't have the technology. When we talk of the minerals, the rare earth elements, huge tracts of fertile land that are suitable for extensive biodiversity that we're looking for, but most important, natural resources like the sun, solar power, when we're talking of the green or fuels that we need, then the hydro power, the wind, in copious amounts in Africa. But then also to add to that, being the youngest continent, a lot of energy and young people who are ready to tap into this, just given the guidance and the partnership, the innovative, collaboration that is needed, in terms of technology transfer. So joint projects that tap into this, that's what I wanted to add. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nancy. Excellent points of the resources, abundant, as you said, resources that are available in the African continent. Salome, do you have anything to add as this question about the COP29 and the cycles coming up on what we should be, how can we strengthen collaboration and cooperation?
Yes, thank you. And I will also add to what Raj and Ambassador Nancy said. First, it's interesting to see that we all talk about cooperation, but in a different way. So as you mentioned, I work for EcoPeace Middle East, which is a Jordanian, Palestinian, Israeli NGO with 3 offices in Amman, Ramallah, Tel Aviv, 3 directors, 3 wonderful teams. And as you can imagine, it has been challenging months, years. I mean, the conflict hasn't started yesterday, but we still do work together. And we still work together because we believe that regional integration is crucial for the success of projects related to ocean environment. And because at the end, that nature, water knows no border, and we need to work together. And we work together on an equal footing, like you mentioned, Karen, is so important to maybe try to go beyond the north-south comparison and to be more on an equal footing, like also, and a positive note, like Ambassador Nancy started to mention. You mentioned the solar panel projects. We actually have a project called the Green Blue Deal, whose goal is really to work on the comparative advantages of all the countries and to exchange renewable energy from Jordan in exchange of desalinated water from Israel, and to, of course, include the Palestinians in this deal to make sure that everyone can have advantages for this. The memorandum of understanding was signed at COP27, and the real agreement was supposed to be signed at COP28, but because of the war, everything is a bit delayed. But we really hope to bring back this agreement and make sure that we can share the benefits of cooperating together. Is so important on a concrete way, on a human way, and environmental way as well. And I really like what Ambassador Nancy said also about the ocean strategy roadmap you mentioned. I want to read more about it because also where I live in the Gulf of Aqaba, we are actually building an ICZM project, Integrated Coastal Zone Management, a regional one. It means that together with the local authorities of Taba, Aqaba, and Elat, we are building the same indicators to monitor better coastal and marine ecology, tourism, well-being of the Red Sea, and to be really, again, on this equal step and building together. I think sometimes when we mention North-South cooperation or cooperation in general, there is a party which brings a solution that it expects the other one to follow without adapting or replicating, without changing much. But I think the goal for COP29, UNOC 3, etc., is really to build something together and grow from this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salome. I think some very clear, concrete examples there of the importance of regional cooperation in the most difficult circumstances that you could possibly imagine, and an ongoing conflict that, as you said, did not start in October as the recent crisis has. I think we would like to, looking ahead to the Ocean Conference of next year, which is co-hosted by France and Costa Rica. We have the science there. We have a lot of, obviously there are gaps still, but a lot of the science is available. But we talk about a gap between science and policy. What outcomes or what can we do using the opportunity of UNOC 3 to bridge that gap between the science that we have and the policies that are being implemented? Would anybody like to start us off on that?
Like you have said, let me start by saying that, yes, we are in a very difficult situation right now with the health of our oceans deteriorating at a very alarming levels, particularly in the last 2 decades. But this has happened despite us having what appears to be very elaborate policies targeting and aimed at the achievement of sustainable use of the oceans. Because the targets desire from the policies that we've created, we seem to be moving further and further away. And I think with every additional policy, we've not been able to bridge the gap, and we still see a widening between what is current and the state, and the targets in terms of status of the ocean. Now, we knew we would be here because science had told us. The scientists had told us already. They had demonstrated their cause. So I think we need to step back and interrogate what are the missing areas? How do we bridge the science and policy gap that we are seeing in a way that will be able to foster more effective, evidence-based decision-making for the sustainable management of our oceans? Because this is crucial, and we know now is going to be very, very important for effective ocean governance and sustainability. And I want to suggest maybe 2 or 3 initiatives that we must come up with. And the first one I'm going to say is to come up with methods or intentional pronouncement on how to enhance the science policy interface, how to strengthen the mechanisms for dialogue and collaboration between the scientists and the policymakers, because I think that's where the chasm, gets wider and wider. And it will include establishing platforms and mechanisms for regular interaction between the two, knowledge sharing, and most important, joint problem-solving mechanism. We need to encourage policymakers to, as much as possible, or at all times, to base their decisions on sound scientific evidence and data collection, comprehensive data, not just data. And this will involve promoting the use of scientific assessments, research findings, and very, very important expert advice in policy, not just in the formulation bit, but also the implementation, so that we don't stop at implementation, but we also have monitoring and evaluation on how those policies are affecting us. So in that case, ensure the collection, sharing, and analysis of high quality, comprehensive, and timely oceanographic data. Most important, and the one I'll mention last, is capacity building. We must invest in capacity building initiatives to enhance scientific literacy of policymakers, as well as improve the understanding of the policy processes among scientists, because it's like, we've got 2 groups speaking, each in a language of their own, but no communication. So we need training programs. Will they be workshops? Will they be educational resources that helps us, bridge that gap, so that the policymakers have enhanced understanding of marine sciences and the importance of evidence-based decision-making. And for this also, we'll need effective communication. Is there a way that we can break down or, make science more understandable to the policymakers? Maybe we come up with the reports, but we are not able to break them into bite-sized, communicable, language that the policymakers and decision makers are able to understand. And I'm speaking from experience in this, having been at the head of policymaking, that, for example, when you engage, for example, with the legislature, there is a big gap, and yet they play such a big role. So I believe, coming up with procedures and frameworks through which we can close that chasm will be very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Nancy. Raj, I see you've got your hand up, and I'd just like you to hold that thought for 1 second, because we haven't heard from Victoria yet, and I think do you have something to add on this question? Could I just turn to you, Victoria? Welcome. And how is the situation regarding this in Seychelles?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the question, and I want to echo everything that Ambassador Nancy has just highlighted. This is all very relevant to Seychelles, and I mean, I think there is a need to bridge science policy gap in every nation, but it's important to also focus on the vulnerability and challenges faced by small island developing states in particular. We have a unique dependence on the marine environment, but we also have unique challenges, because of our geographical isolation, because of our economies of scale, our exposure to natural disasters, and obviously being at the forefront of climate change impacts. This all adds up. So when it comes to capacity building, that's kind of one of the first things that pops up when we talk about SIDS, and capacity building, I feel, is an issue across the world, but particular in SIDS. And this was also something that was reflected in the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, which took place not too long ago. So I think it's important to look at what was said in the recent high-level events and conferences and the declarations as well that was produced. So if we look at the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for SIDS, this is the renewed declaration, basically. And here, we highlight again, the significant challenges in data collection, analysis, the limitations in technical institutional capacity that we have, which basically hinders evidence and science-based policymaking and monitoring progress. So I think there's just a general need to prioritize national data management, because it's one thing to say that we need more capacity building, but it also has to form part of, a national priority. And in Seychelles, it's something that we're definitely talking more and more about. It's definitely something that we're putting more as a priority. We do have data collection, and then it's always the question of issues of institutional memory. A lot of data gets lost, and when it doesn't get lost, then we just don't have the capacity to analyze and to translate that into policy briefs. So Seychelles is working on, using existing technology to help develop online platforms and tools to support management and analysis of, key fields, particularly managing our marine protected areas, our marine spatial plan, reporting on public and private biodiversity and climate change adaptation expenditure, reporting on our SDGs. So we've acknowledged and we know that we have to use the technology that is available to us, because we just don't have the human capacity. So we need to make the most of what is out there. And we obviously do get a lot of support from international organizations and funders as well, international donors such as the Jeff Trust Fund. I do also want to highlight that for me, bridging the science policy gap, I think ocean education, ocean literacy has a huge role to play in that. And I just want to point out that there is the Venice Declaration for Ocean Literacy in Action. This declaration emerged from the first Ocean Literacy World Conference, which took place in June. And here I think that for all stakeholders to really, I think, when we're talking about climate ocean action, and we want policymakers, decision makers to really be in the conversation, I think they first need to, be empowered and understand the importance of respecting the marine environment and preserving ocean cultures nationally, regionally, and internationally. So I really hope that in UNOC 3, declarations, so that such as the Venice Declaration, I really hope that all these declarations will be put forward, and that the outcomes will be aligned with what has already been put forward and what has already been committed at a high level. So whether that's the Barcelona statement, whether that's the Peace for the Ocean Declaration, which came out of the high-level event on ocean action, all of these, obviously, they're all aligned and they're all kind of saying the same thing. But I feel like the UNOC 3 will really be the space to put all of that together, and to, just really tackle the issues that are relevant to national policy gaps.
Well, thank you very much, Victoria. And thank you for highlighting as well. Obviously, this is something that comes up again and again when we're talking about the ocean is the role of SIDS and the fact that SIDS have unique challenges, but also, commonalities between the SIDS and also differences as well. Very vast, have differences between SIDS in the Pacific to the Caribbean to the Indian Ocean, similar experiences, but also differences and different ways to contribute as well. And you mentioned as well the different declarations being saying the same thing. I hope that UNOC 3 can be a place to bring everything together. Talking about SIDS, Raj, you're at the IOC as bringing together all the SIDS of the Indian Ocean, of which Seychelles is one, and Mauritius, where you're from as well. Do you have anything to add on this bridging the ocean science gap before we move on to the next question?
Yeah. Very quickly, I know that this is a very, very important subject as well. And you're absolutely very right to raise this question. But I think what's very important is to understand why there is this gap. And I'd like to take just a few examples to demonstrate what I'm saying. We talk about, for example, the oceans. We talk about the FAO is saying in the context of a few decades, most of the fish will be gone, for example. And that there is lots of IU fishing, it's not controlled, for example. But then I question, where is the level of IU fishing? Who is estimating it? On what basis? Find one. You won't find. That's one. So the science, it means that you're able to assess the stock of the different fish in the oceans and that you're able to monitor the level of the fish catch, etc. Now, ITC is looking at the tuna, but then there are some estimates. I question that. That's one. Secondly, there are technologies just like VMS that countries can use. And at the IOC, we have set this up since 2 decades to be used in order to be able to control the amount of the fish that is being caught in each of the EEZs since 2 decades. Why is it that we are not achieving what was expected with these kind of tools? What I'm trying to say is that going to address the gap between science and policy would require us to be looking very carefully on the specific issues relating to the ocean governance and each of them, and then relaying it up to such conferences as UNOC 3. It's very important to look at what is going not so well. It's very important on that one. Unless we do that, I think that we may be, talking around the issues, but not trying to address this. I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raj. I would like to, because we're having so many contributions and such fascinating discussions going on, I want to move on to a very important question about youth. We have youth as a part of the title of this this event, and we have half our panel is deliberately so-called youth. And I want to address full on the role of youth. Ambassador Nancy, you alluded to it before about one of Africa's strengths is the young population and the resources, and we've talked again about partnerships and things. What is the role of youth in bringing about partnerships of accelerating ocean action? We'll start with that, moving concretely onto the role of youth.
Thank you very much. I want to say that the youth are central. Completely, they sit right in the middle of this. And unless we bring them on board, then there's no sustainability in whatever we are talking, because they are the future, for one. And if you look at them today, they are different from the way we grew up. They are energetic, they are innovative, very, very, forward-looking young people. But I think we bring them into the conversations very late. And I've been a great advocate of catching them young engaging them in their formative years, so they grow up knowing and, invested in what we are talking about. Then, we make the mistake when we engage them a bit late, quite late in life. For example, when I look at in our region, when we talk of bringing them into careers, sort of, you're trying to talk to them in their high schools, that the door has already closed because they've chosen whatever they want to do, and they chose based on what they have understood in the environment in which they are living in. For example, in Kenya, we've got we've got a vast country. And unless a young person lives on the coast, they have no clue, no imagination. They don't understand the environment. So how do we then capture the imagination of the young people growing in the mountain areas? So having initiatives that engage them, fire their imaginations when they are young, is going to be very, very important. We are told that by 13 years, children, and I could speak from my own experience, I wanted to be a nurse when I was young because I had a favorite auntie who was in nursing, and I grew up really admiring her. Now, how will we raise ocean stewards when we are not exposed to them, when our children are not exposed to such people when they are young, when they are not exposed to the oceans, when even those who live along the oceans, the 60% we said of the populations that live on the oceans, what they are exposed to are subsistence, fishermen, for example, people eking a living because they don't have the necessary capacity or the knowledge or the means to be able to invest in the business. We've not lifted them up. So I cannot emphasize enough how important that the young people are. We've seen how clever they are. For example, in terms of technology, in Kenya, the mobile money was created by a very young person. And look at the effect it's had on our whole socio-economic, fabric of our society. So we just need to embrace the young people, talk to them, be with them, and for them it grows. So that's what I would want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Nancy. Kumba, could I ask you as well the same question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was brilliantly put. I wholeheartedly agree with what was said by Ambassador Nancy, and I'd just like to hop off back on what Victoria has said as well. It's really something that we've heard for a long time, that the youth represents the future for our different continents, for climate change, for real action. But when we look into the actions that are being put into place, does it really ring? Is the youth really empowered? Do we really see the youth in high speaking levels of politics, of the future? Are they really empowered? For instance, there's a 2023 survey by the Africa Youth Needs Survey, specifically related to climate action and climate change action. When they've been asked what are the top 3 obstacles that they've been faced with, they said that the first one is financial constraint, which is something that we've already touched on, lack of awareness and understanding, which is also something that we've highlighted, but also the lack of political support, because the youth is not really invited into meetings or to draft public policy related to ocean action, to climate change. So how can we have that speech of we need the youth, but we don't really need the youth for the whole process? So there needs to really be a shift in the narrative and in the actions as well. So this is what Je m'engage pour l'Afrique is really at the core of our action, to really empower, to accompany, and to believe in the youth and their representation, their political weight as well. So the first step to act is really advocacy and awareness raising, which was what we've already said. Also, something that we already highlighted is the fact that young people are digital natives. So how can we use that to the advantage of the planet and the advantage of the youth? It's a tool that is central to our different methods here at Je m'engage pour l'Afrique, to bring a really representative point of view of the youth, and it's for it to be as as really aligned as possible with what the youth really needs. Also to include them in the drafting of public policies and to ensure that those public policies are inclusive and address the concerns of the youth and for the next generations. I think of goals like the 30 by 30 goal. It's in a short of 6 years. How can we actively work together to really accomplish that goal in just 6 years? It's going to go by really fast, so we really need to act as fast as possible, as well as something that we've already touched on, which is partnership and collaboration on a state level. So for the NGOs to really talk to the youth, to the government and academic institutions. And it's really important to sort of restore the trust that was sort of broken between citizens and the government, since the African youth doesn't seem to be supported by their different governments. It's also the core of our action here at Je m'engage pour l'Afrique to really restore that faith, restore that confidence, restore that dialogue that has been broken, and know the best ways to act collectively. Something else that is really important is to highlight and encourage an effort of cross-continental dialogues. So I think a really interesting idea would be there's different organizations that are created by the youth of Africa, of America, of Europe. I think, for instance, here at the EU level, there's the Youth for Ocean Forum. On the African level, there's the African Youth Sustainable Ocean Campaign. How do these different actors bring their strength together to really perform together and really to know that they can draft a strategy that's going to be the best for the future, for their future, for the collective future. So ultimately, these networks can be used for innovation and research and really enhance the participation of the youth in reservation and restoration and in different paths that we can use for ocean and climate action.
Thank you, Kumba. Thank you for mentioning as well the importance of networks. And the Africa Europe Foundation has launched a network of African and European youth to try to bridge the connection, to connect youth across the two continents and talk about partnerships and collaboration at the youth level. Salome and Victoria, I'd like to hear your input as well on leveraging youth leadership and how we can involve youth more. What's the role of youth? Would either of you like to speak first?
And if I may, just because it will also what Kumba said right now on the youth cross-continental dialogue, it's something that we also do at UNGO, which is the youth constituency of the UNFCCC. We are lucky to be 12,000 members from all over the world. And this year I coordinate the UNGO Oceans Voice Working Group. And together with our members, we wrote like a Global Ocean Youth Declaration with more than 200 inputs from all the youth around the world. It was a very moving moment. And I'm happy also to share it in the chat, because it's not only another declaration, but it really requires actions from individual and organizations. And we are trying to promote this declaration also later this year. And you're right also, Kumba, and I think Ambassador Nancy mentioned it as well, but sometimes we want youth, but not in the whole process. And that's why also UNGO last year did the youth stocktake. I don't know if you've heard of it. It tries to assess the youth participation in the UNFCCC processes with parties, with also the youth global statement written every year. So it's also an interesting document to better monitor the youth participation, how meaningful it is, and how parties are open to it. And maybe one last thing, because we mentioned capacity building a few times, and I really want to mention the wonderful work Peaceboat is doing on that as well. I was lucky to be a youth for the SDG program last year, and I think these kind of programs are key for youth, because youth, like maybe anyone, when we are sometimes we are motivated, but we don't know where to start. And in the program like the Youth for the SDGs, it was a great opportunity to not only connect grassroots initiatives like the knowledge we can get from indigenous communities, and also conservation programs with the turtles, but to also be able to connect it with policymakers, also economists at the Blue Economic Forum, and understand better how it all connects and how with our own personal or group youth initiative we can better interact with all the stakeholders. Thank you.
And Victoria as well, I'd like to hear your input as well on involving youth. I mean, I know that we've worked with Seychelles, and when our ship's been there, we've been really inspired by the young people and the active role that they're playing in ocean governance. Can you share some insights from from Seychelles about how the youth are involved and what we can do to encourage youth leadership?
Sure. Yeah, I had the luxury of interacting with some of the Peace Boat youngsters and participants, and it was really I was amazed by the exposure that they get, and having, you know, a lot of the NGOs, well, some of the NGOs are particularly youth led. So I'm part of the Ocean Project Seychelles, and it is a youth led local NGO, as well as SIA, so a SIDS Youth Aims Hub Seychelles. It's a hub that represents a regional non-governmental organization. And yeah, the youth in Seychelles are definitely very active. And also, there's always more that we can do. But I think that having structures like the National Youth Councils, you know, not every country necessarily has a National Youth Council, but we do have one. And I think that in the last couple of years, government has been interacting more and more with that structure. And it's something that arose as well in the SIDS Global Youth and Children Action Summit, which took place just before the SIDS 4 conference. And here, one of the ideas that arose is that, you know, there's a lot going on around the world, but, you know, a lot of the times we tend to work in isolation, and there's still a need for more interconnectivity and for, you know, improved communication. So, you know, there was this idea of developing an international SIDS Youth Council that would basically connect all the national youth councils to also encourage knowledge exchange between. So obviously, I'm talking about SIDS specifically, but there is a need for more knowledge exchange amongst youth, and just there's so many opportunities that unfortunately we do miss out on because we either kind of find out about it last minute, or, you know, information doesn't trickle down back at the local level. So definitely, I think trying to build on these more formal youth-led structures is really key, because that also enables to mainstream communication with government and with the public sector bodies. I also think that a key word when we talk about, you know, youth is accountability. You know, we have a huge role to play when it comes to keeping our government accountable, also ourselves accountable, but, you know, acting as a sort of watchdog in the local community. So I think various youth groups have done an amazing job in that respect. What I wanted to also just highlight is the importance of fostering a stable ocean literate workforce. So I think it's important to start from the very beginning, and this is also something that was highlighted in the Venice Declaration. But it's important to develop ocean literacy framework for formal and non-formal educational systems for all stakeholders. I think when we talk about early career ocean professionals, this needs to be integrated as well in decision-making processes. And if we want to allow for new leaders to emerge, we really need to create that environment for young professionals. So yeah, I'll stop there. I know that time is running out, but this is what I would add on to.
Thank you, and thank you for being mindful of the time as well. It's unbelievable how a 90-minute event is going so fast. Raja, could I just ask very briefly? I know that you're working to involve youth in the IOC. Can I just have a couple of an input from you before I go again to Nancy, and then on to the next question?
First of all, I think we have to understand. I mean, this is something on which we've been working precisely when we have been looking at some statistics. Madagascar, 72% of their population is youth.
Ambassador Nancy, could I ask you have your hand raised?
Yes, very quickly before Raj comes back, I just want to mention something that Kumba made me remember when she's talked about, bringing trust between governments and the young people. And something that Victoria has also said, early ocean professionals when they come in. Now, I wanted to touch on the point at which young people get into the job market. What are they looking for? They're looking for job security. Of course, the pay of the job. They're also looking at the money they're going to earn, how much, it will enable them to live a good life. And also they will be assured of, social amenities, housing. They'll be assured of, they're looking for jobs that will assure them of pensions at the end of the term, which governments outside the jobs, particularly in our side of the divide, do not provide. Now, what does that mean? They will not be attracted into entrepreneurship, particularly in the blue economy space. And therefore, we need the governments or to push for policies, government to adopt policies that de-risk the entrepreneurship so that young people can take the plunge into the blue economy space because then they will feel confident and not feel insecure in the kind of job they've chosen. So that's what I thought would be important to also mention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Nancy. And we'll, as soon as Raj, you're able to come back, let us know. But that takes us actually on to the next question of talking about personal finance and funding and entrepreneurship to more broader funding and financial restraints. We've touched on it already, but if we could look as well at what financial mechanisms are there available to fund the blue economy, to fund initiatives. Raj, are you able to respond on this?
We need to address the polluters pays principle. We can't continue in economic model where in Mauritius you have 150 million plastic bottles only, just for plastic bottles, and you just throw it in the environment. So we have to have that. And in that respect, I think that the model that has been developed in the EU, like the ERP model, the extended responsibility, producer's responsibility, is key. That's a model which needs to be promoted and which requires a lot of attention. And if we don't do this, I don't think we'll go far. Thirdly, there is a need to embark on an intense negotiation with international financial institutions and development partners for providing improved mechanism and incentives. I think that there is a need now to look at the different types of projects and why we should be putting lots of emphasis in the different measures. And lastly, I think that it's very important to have a program, an overall international program on what I mentioned earlier, but also on looking at fiscal and monetary measures, not just at national level, not just at regional level, as well as international level, and evaluate the existing measures. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that we have to really look at, for example, you look at seeds. Now, we know that seeds, they have large ocean zones. But at the same time, if you look at a country like Seychelles, it's a high middle income country, so development aid should be less.
Does anybody else have anything to point with? Because we are actually almost finishing the webinar, but the session. Is there anything more on the financial side of things, which is so important for getting anything done?
Can I mention in the context of the Africa-Europe partnership, how important it is to leverage on the 4 Ps. That's the public, private, people partnerships. We usually talk of the 3 Ps, but I want to add the 4th one, the people, which means which calls for involving collaboration between the public sector the private sector, civil society, and the general public to attain sustainable development goals and tackle various socio-economic challenges, and in particular, financing, addressing the financing needs, particularly of the region. So public sector, if I may touch, government support and policies are very, very important in terms of creating the right policy support, tax incentives that then create the conducive environment for funding and thus investments of development programs. Funding and grants, private sector participation, and also bringing in the local community for buying in, so that we're not looking at finances in terms of just the cash injection, but also the people coming together and bringing their different strengths and capabilities into achieving for the bigger, the whole. I think that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. So I think we're just at the end of we're on the limit, but I'm going to take the liberty of just asking if anybody has any closing remarks before we finish up, just to push over those 90 minutes.
I'd just like to really quickly highlight what Victoria has said about empowering the youth and educating the youth in the sense that formal and informal education system need to be treated equally when it comes to all these issues regarding the ocean, regarding ocean conservation. And when we speak of the youth, we have to speak of the whole youth, not just the educated youth or the privileged youth or the ones who sort of know the tools and the ones who know how to act, but really to bring the collective together, which is just the only thing I just wanted to finish by.
Okay, I think we are at the end. We have come to the last the end of our time here. I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody, all our panelists, for joining us today, and thank you very much to our attendees for listening so attentively. It's been a pleasure to moderate this event. Thank you very much. And the High Level Political Forum is continuing over in New York, and I think we've contributed to the discussion. And I think that some people have joined from seeing this as a listed side event. So we have a full agenda ahead of us, looking forward to 2025, although we're only halfway through 2024. We have our work cut out, but thank you very much for everybody contributing today. This will be reported on the Africa Europe Foundation website, on the Peaceboat website, with a recording up, so you can look back on some of the points that were made. And please get in touch with either Peaceboat or Africa Europe Foundation through our social media and our websites. So thank you very much to all our panelists, to our speakers, and to our attendees. Thank you.